Crimson Trace announces Laser Guard Pro for today's most popular concealed carry firearms, combining a red or green laser sight with 150 lumen light, taking personal defense to the next level. Available now at your local dealer.
Today on Tom Gresham's Gun Talk, 1 week after the attack in Las Vegas, what can we learn and where do we go from here? Call in now, 1-TOM-TALK-GUN. Now, here's Tom.
All right, settle in. We're going to talk about it. Hey, I'm Tom Gresham. Welcome to Gun Talk. Glad that you could be here. Our number here, if you'd like to join us, is 866-TALK-GUN, or just dial Tom Talk Gun, because a lot of people have a lot of opinions, a lot of thoughts, a lot of questions, a lot of suggestions. There's been an awful lot of discussion. Last week, on Sunday, when we did the show, only a few hours after that, it hardly seems like it's been a week, only a few hours after that, a man, I'm tempted to say madman, but we really don't know yet. A man in Las Vegas breaks out windows of his hotel room with a hammer and then uses a number of rifles to kill more than 50 people and injure a whole lot more, with the intention of killing a lot more. He stopped after 11 minutes of shooting, but police didn't enter the room for 75 minutes after the shooting started. But with good reason, once the shooting stopped, and people keep saying, well, why didn't they go in sooner? Once the shooting stopped, they were busy clearing the floor, getting people out of the rooms around there. Smart move. Okay, he's not shooting. We don't have to go in right now. Let's protect the people around here. And they're emptying all the rooms around. Made sense. Good police work all the way around. The conversations are predictable. The conversations are the same we have had for a long time. The conversations break down to pretty much the same people saying the same things right now. And I've been giving this a lot of thought over the last few days, and a lot of people have. One of the things and there are a lot of things I need to cover. By the way, if you got to see Meet the Press earlier today, Chuck Todd had a recorded interview with Congressman Steve Scalise, Louisiana Congressman, Majority Whip. The man who was shot in an assassination attempt in Washington, D.C. Oh, yeah, where guns are pretty much illegal. Where shooting people is certainly illegal, and was saved by two people with guns. Chuck Todd's interview, I'll talk about that in just a bit. It was impressive. Congressman Scalise is very impressive. Recorded interview. They kept saying, exclusive interview. Yeah, well, okay. But in about 1 hour from now, we will have Congressman Steve Scalise on Gun Talk Radio live, right here, Gun Talk. He will be with us right here. We have a lot to talk to him about. A most impressive man, I got to tell you. Many, many thoughts. But as I was thinking about all this, I was thinking about the discussions I've had and the things that I've done relating to gun rights over the years. And I started going back and back and back and thinking, when did I start? When did I start in this? And I went, holy cow. I first started writing about gun rights exactly 50 years ago, 1967, in what at that time was called the Dodd Bill. You know the Dodd Bill, but you may not know you know the Dodd Bill because it became the Gun Control Act of 1968. I have been covering gun rights and the battle with those who would ban guns for 5 decades now. I have seen who they are. I've seen what they do. I know what they want. They actually have told me what they want. They don't do it very often, but every once in a while they'll break down and they'll actually slip. It was interesting because there was a conversation today with Chuck Todd, and he was interviewing Dianne Feinstein on Meet the Press after he interviewed Steve Scalise. Dianne Feinstein, of course, was the author of the Clinton gun ban, the crime bill, which banned a number of rifles, but didn't really, based on cosmetic features. It's the only piece of legislation she's ever authored, and then it sunsetted. She's been there that long. She has no piece of legislation that she has authored that's ever survived. But put that aside. So I remember asking Tom Diaz of the Violence Policy Center, a gun ban group, on the radio show, live, couldn't duck and dodge. And I said, okay, here's the deal. You get to be king. You get to be emperor. You get to be whatever. You have a magic wand. You wave your magic wand. What is it you want? I mean, ultimately, because he was pushing for, some incremental little thing. I said, ultimately, what is it you want? He said, well, if I get anything I want? I said, yeah. He says, well, I'll get rid of all the guns. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, well, what about the police? His answer was instructive and illuminating. He said, well, once we get rid of all the guns, the police won't need theirs either. Sometimes they will actually tell you what they want, which is to get rid of all the guns. The only way to do that is to confiscate them. The only way to do that is to do door-to-door searches of every room, every closet, every attic, every storage unit, every garage in the United States of America. Oh, well, they would never do that. Really? Let me introduce you to some people from New Orleans where they said, we're going to confiscate every gun in the city. And they did. They went door to door. They took guns away from people. Hurricane Katrina. Oh, well, that would never happen in the United States of America. Yes, it did. Well, the law enforcement officers would never take action on an order like that. Yes, they did. Confiscation door to door in the United States of America. So I said, if you could have anything you want, you wave your magic wand. He said, we'd get rid of all the guns. So it was interesting to me today when Chuck Todd on Meet the Press asked Dianne Feinstein this question. Give me the slate of laws that if you could wave your wand and have enacted, that could have prevented Vegas, the shooting in Las Vegas. Feinstein answered, I'm not sure there is any set of laws that could have prevented it. Admitting that she cannot come up with any idea for any law that could be passed, anything that would have prevented it. And yet, and here's the thing, and yet in her next breath calling for more gun control laws. Saying, I know we can't prevent this, but this is my golden opportunity to restrict gun rights, which is what I really, truly want to do. This would be the same Dianne Feinstein that when she was talking to 60 Minutes, right after the passage of the Clinton gun ban that she authored, she said, well, if I could have gotten the votes to pick them all up, Mr. and Mrs. America turned them all in, I would have done it. I just didn't have the votes. She wants to ban all gun ownership in the United States of America. That's what they want. That's what they want. Don't make any mistake about it. And don't think that giving them something means they will be satisfied. No, that never happens. They're never satisfied with getting a little bit. It's always funny. They say, well, can't you compromise? Now, you got to understand that for them, compromise means that we give up something and they don't get everything. They don't get to ban all the guns, and they just get to have more gun restrictions. So I kind of liked the statement from the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms and the Second Amendment Foundation. And they said, the Second Amendment Foundation and Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms support a productive dialogue concerning bump stocks, national concealed carry reciprocity, and the proposed Hearing Protection Act. We recognize that banning firearms accessories is not a solution to violent crime. In other words, what they did is they linked all of these. You want to talk bump stocks? Great. We will also include a discussion about national concealed carry reciprocity and the Hearing Protection Act. So if you get something, then we get something. That's the concept of compromise. There's so much more for us to talk about. Here's a thought for you. Haven't you found it interesting this week, whether you're on Facebook or Twitter or just talking to your friends? If you're talking to anybody that doesn't really know guns, how much both misinformation and lack of information is out there? That full auto, how many times have you heard this week? Well, of course, automatic weapons are illegal. Automatic weapons are illegal. Well, no, they're not. They're clearly not. And then, of course, what do they call that? Can't remember the exact term, but basically it's saying that semi-autos are full auto, kind of putting the two together and confusing the public. And right now, I'll guarantee you, if you have people who are not gun people you talk to, they will tell you that semi-automatics are machine guns. Now, we have already a call for the banning of all semi-automatic firearms. We'll discuss that. Our number is 866-TALK-GUN. When we come back, I'll give you a couple of my thoughts about this and where I think it's going. Be right back.
The holster that changes shape with your lifestyle is finally here. Alien Gear Holsters proudly presents the revolutionary Shapeshift modular holster system. The Shapeshift starter kit is a base package containing one holster that can easily switch between four of the most popular carry positions, including IWB, OWB, appendix, and paddle, depending on your preference or activity. Find more information, including future carry options like shoulder and drop thigh, at aliengearholsters.com.
Are you looking for a place to shoot? The National Shooting Sports Foundation has a great website called wheretoshoot.org. It's the largest database of shooting ranges on the internet. It's also a great resource for shooters where you can find video tips, printable targets, and a lot more. Find it online at wheretoshoot.org. And while you're there, download their free iPhone app. That's wheretoshoot.org.
Built to perform in the harshest conditions, the Ruger American pistol can take it all, from ice to dust and everything in between. The Ruger American pistol features a short take-up trigger, Novak sights, and a recoil-reducing barrel cam with low-mass slide for reduced felt recoil, plus a modular grip system with 3 sizes to fit almost any hand. Check it out at Ruger.com. The Ruger American pistol, because anything else would be un-American.
When you want the highest quality ammunition, look to HSM. Since 1968, hunters and shooters have counted on HSM cartridges, including world-renowned Trophy Gold, featuring Berger VLD bullets, Pro Pistol Hunter, Cowboy Action, and the new Game King, featuring field-proven Sierra bullets. HSM's new revolutionary low-recoil rifle loads hit game hard, but kick much less. Low-recoil loads use standard weight-for-caliber Sierra hunting bullets in 7 popular calibers. HSM at your local shooting sports retailer.
Perhaps more than any other landscape, wetlands embody the life-giving abundance that nature has to offer. And perhaps more than any other organization, Ducks Unlimited is working to ensure that our continent's wetlands not only survive, but thrive for generations well beyond this one. The time is now to band together. The time is now to rescue our wetlands.
Hardcore tactical professionals who put their lives on the line every day depend on Surefire. For decades, Surefire has built the first and finest professional-grade flashlights, weapon-mounted lights, hearing protection, and suppressors. We build the best because lives depend on it, and we know failure is not an option. We design, engineer, and manufacture Surefire products right here in the U.S. For you, for your loved ones, Surefire. American built, American strong. Surefire.com.
All right, back with you. Our number is 866-TALK-GUN. I'm Tom Gresham. The show is Gun Talk, if you've just stumbled upon it. We talk about guns. We've been doing this for 22-plus years on the air. We talk about the safe and responsible use of guns, the guns we use for sport, for hunting, for recreational use, for target shooting, certainly for self-defense, collecting. We're the good guys and gals. We're the ones you don't often hear about, the ones who own 99.99% of the guns that are not used in crime. Here's a tidbit for you. I sprung this on somebody today on Facebook, and he had no idea. He had never heard of it. Haynes versus the United States. Haynes v. the United States, 1968, I believe Haynes was. And this is one to keep in your pocket when you're having discussions. Under this United States Supreme Court decision, it ruled that a person who is prohibited from having a gun cannot be required to register that gun because that would be self-incrimination. In other words, by law, gun laws can be applied only to people who don't break the law. And they go, what? Well, that's just, yeah, I know. I'm just telling you what it is. I'm just telling you what it is. It did not take long. You know, what's the old Rahm Emanuel deal? You know, never let a crisis go to waste. In other words, have your shopping list of restrictions on gun rights handy and just reach around and grab them out of the drawer, or in this case, the digital drawer, and fling them out there whenever the opportunity arises. And boy, did they ever. Let's see. Representative Bill Foster, Democrat of Illinois, today called for, quote, military-style guns to be locked away at gun clubs only. Said Foster is not one to shy away from calling for more gun control. He's called for universal background checks and other things. He says, quote, I would hope that when you look at what's happened with mass shootings in the last years, that we at a minimum establish the principle that if you are going to own a military type weapon, love the phrase, that should be locked away in a gun club and not carried in public. We're triangulating here, we're conflating. Should be locked away in a gun club and not carried in public. In other words, he's quick to say, rather than keeping it at home, we're going to assume that if it's not in a gun club, it's going to be carried in public. Nice word, Congressman. And he says, I love this, that is completely consistent with the Second Amendment. And it's a principle that we should apply nationally. So the Second Amendment says the people shall not be denied the right to keep and bear arms, right? Shall not be infringed. Keep and bear. To own and have possession of and to carry. Keep and bear. Keep at your home. The Supreme Court says it's okay to have them in home. He says, no. Military style guns. You shouldn't be able to have those in your home. You have to have those locked away at the shooting range. Okay, military style. That would be all bolt action rifles, because those are military style. They were all based on military designs. We could go on and on. Well, you know where we're going there. I did love the proposal I heard today. Why should people be able to have so much ammunition? 50 rounds is enough for anybody. So we should have a law that you can only buy 50 rounds at a time, and before you can buy any more ammunition, you must bring in 50 empty cases that you've already fired. And then you can get 50 more rounds. I'm not kidding. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi said Thursday that she certainly hopes a ban on bump stocks will open the door to additional gun control action. See, they never mean what they say when they say this is all we want. And occasionally they'll actually come out and say it. She says, quote, they're going to say you give them the bump stock and it's going to be a slippery slope. She says, I certainly hope so. Pelosi said Democrats still want to push for enhanced background checks on gun purchases, which is in itself a compromise from even harsher restrictions favored by the party. Oh, yeah, more bills introduced. Let's see. Call to ban bump stocks has begun. Let's see. Lawmaker calls for AR-style rifles to be locked up at gun clubs. Just covered that one. We had, there was a couple of others here. Oh, yeah, the bump stock ban. And this is why you don't let Congress do this, because sometimes they're just ignorant and sometimes they're clever. But one of the bills that's been introduced to ban bump stocks says essentially you couldn't add anything to a gun that would allow you to increase its rate of fire. You know what that would also include? Every aftermarket trigger. Timney triggers, Geisley triggers, anybody else's triggers, all aftermarket triggers banned. Oh, yeah, and Jerry Mislick's finger, too. Man, they're out for blood. They really are. Now, look, here's the other thing that bothers me. The very idea that they paint us, you and me, as being emotionless, as having no feelings, never imagining the gun owners out here who, when we hear of this sort of attack, whether it's with guns or a pressure cooker bomb or a truck, those of us who are literally reduced to tears, who literally fall to our knees and pray for everyone affected, they want to paint you as a demon. They have to demonize you. They have to demonize you so that they can marginalize you. Oh, here's another question. So what role did the drugs this guy's on play? On diazepam, I guess that's also Valium. Evidently, there have been a number of violent encounters with people who were on these drugs. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, yeah, Hillary Clinton immediately tweets out, well, imagine how much worse Vegas would have been if he had used silencers. Of course, I mean, quite literally, people are still bleeding when she put that out. People are on the ground bleeding. They're in hospitals, people fighting for their lives, and she's putting out. Think how much worse it would have been if it used silencers. Ignoring the fact that an AR where the silencer sounds like a jackhammer anyway, even PolitiFact came out and said, no, that's bogus. That's, but that shows you the whole never let a crisis go to waste. They have their list of gun bans and restrictions, and when anything happens, they whip them out and throw them out there and see, what can we get done? What can we get done? Understanding, of course, and be clear, you can't throw the babies off the back of the sled to the wolves and hope that the wolves will be satisfied. They want it all. They want everything you have. They want every gun you have. They want every round of ammunition you have. 100 guns is too many. What's the right number? 10? I don't know. 5? I don't know. 1? No, actually, the right number for them is 0. Same with magazine capacity. Same with the number of rounds you can have. 0. That's the right number for them. When we come back, we'll be talking about this and taking some of your calls. 866-TALK-GUN. I am Tom Gresham. Yes, we are saddened, but we have to have resolve and we have to be smart about this.
Sign up for our Gun Talk newsletter and join the Truth Squad at www.guntalk.com. Now, back to Gun Talk with Washington Times opinion page regular contributor Tom Gresham.
All right, back with you. Don't forget that you can follow me. Actually, a lot of ways for you to keep up with all the things that we're doing. You can follow me on Twitter. I am at Gun Talk. You can follow Gun Talk on Instagram. You can like our Facebook page, find out what we're doing there. We have lots of videos that appear there. In fact, a lot of live videos. You can watch our TV shows, radio show, bonus videos, everything else at Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, YouTube, Facebook, and of course, don't forget on Gun Dealio, our app. You need to, by the way, if you haven't refreshed it or loaded the new version, please do that because the old one's going to stop working. The new one is so much better. We got lots of upgrades with that. So important for you to update your Gun Dealio app. You know, of course, that I talk about safety all the time. When we talk about gun safety and self-defense, we just got through shooting a week's worth of first-person offender shows. And recently I've been talking about fire extinguishers and fire safety since we had our big fire. I'm kind of a big deal about lights, locks, all the different systems that will help keep you safe. I just recently ran into something that was very cool. I put a couple of, they're little bitty battery-powered cameras for security. Put them in the house, actually in the apartment where we're staying right now while we're fixing up our house after the fire. And they work off of Wi-Fi, and you can access them. They're from Blink, the company. You can access them from your phone. They're motion detection. So you could have, pointing out in front. You could have it looking to see, when you get a package delivered. You could have it snoop on anybody that tries to pick up one of your packages around the holiday season if there's left on the front porch. But also you could leave them inside your house. So they're basically motion detection systems. They will alert you when there's motion. If there's a problem, you can call 911. You can roll video on it. It's a pretty sweet system. And I will admit I'm not the most technologically advanced person sometimes, and I found it pretty easy to put these things up. So it's pretty sweet. Blink, it's called Blink, and the guys there offered a special deal for us. They said if you can get 3 of the Blink cameras for what they say the other guys charge for 1, plus an extra 10% off. Visit blinkprotect.com/guntalk. That's blinkprotect.com/guntalk. Yeah, I got a couple of these running all the time. blinkprotect.com/guntalk. We're talking about all the misinformation out there. And if you've been on Facebook, holy smoke, I just get an email from a guy who says, "You're so right about the misinformation thrown around this past week." He says, "I tried to be the True Squad on news Facebook pages, but the usual exaggerated stats," he says, which I called out when I saw, he says, way too many times he read about how Trump and the Republicans allowed crazy people to have guns by reversing the Social Security ban executive order. He said, "I tried to correct it and explain it." He says, "I even heard a reporter ask Chris Cox about it." He says, "Now our one news station was talking about this guy in Arizona who turned in his guns." Yeah, a Ruger 1022 and a Walther PK380, and the news station is saying that he turned in a machine gun. Tons of misinformation. Joining me right now is Richard Feldman from the Independent Firearms Owners Association. Always a good guy to talk to, especially when it comes to media coverage of firearms. Richard, welcome. And let me ask you, why is there so much misinformation put out there about what the gun laws are and what is actually happening?
Well, always a pleasure to be here with you, Tom. I suspect that every time we have one of these horrible tragedies, there's all sorts of misinformation that gets out there. Sometimes it's just lazy reporters that if the gun fired more than 2 rounds, it must have been a machine gun. Other times, you and I both have been through these examples where frequently they allege that the shooter had, I think it was in the Pace nightclub shooting last year, they were always talking at first about an AR. And as it turned out, as I recall, he had some variant of a SIG. You know, they just make it up as they go. They don't seem to want to be too grounded by the facts. After all, when you have to deal with the facts, they don't always support your policy argument. So,
well, let me ask you, you've been interviewed probably as much as anybody about guns and gun rights and gun issues. And so you really deal with the media a lot. Do you find that are they generally just misinformed, or do they, I guess it's a three-way deal. Are they misinformed? Do they care? Or are they sometimes actually slanting it because they want to?
I think parts of all three. I think they are misinformed often, and that's an opportunity not to attack them, but to be real straight and say, look, here are the facts. You might be able to interpret the facts the way you wish on your side, but at least let's be talking about the same facts, not the make-believe facts that someone else told you or you just concocted versus the reality. Let's at least be on the same subject line. I mean, certainly going back to the early 1990s and Dianne Feinstein's assault weapon bill, there was so much misinformation that she was responsible even then for putting out about the guns. And that continues to this day. I've always been surprised. You know, I've been involved now for 35 years professionally in the gun rights fight, and I'm always surprised how much lack of knowledge the other side has about the technical side of the gun issue. Frankly, they'd be more of a challenge to us if they knew what they were talking about. They wouldn't make silly mistakes. I'm not encouraging them to get educated. It's kind of nice when they're silly. It makes it easier for our side. But the truth of the matter is, if they cared, and I go back to Charlie Schumer, when Schumer was in the House of Representatives, I remember testifying in front of his committee once with Neil Knox and Dave Kopel, and he was just a repository of misinformation. He's a very bright guy. There's no question. He's a smart guy. If he really cared about the gun issue and spent a few hours learning some of the technical stuff, he would have been more dangerous than he was, not less. So I guess I have to say thank you for being uninformed to all the antis.
Okay. You and I have... been part of and covered and talked about the NRA, and sometimes giving them praise and sometimes calling them on things when they need to be called on it. They have gotten a ton of negative reaction from NRA members this week because of the statement they put out. I've tried to throw some things out there that slow people down. I want to throw this at you. Sometimes, as I often say, a lot of people are playing checkers when you need to be playing chess. And I wonder if their statement of bump stocks are something that we encourage the ATF to review is not a case of playing chess when people are playing checkers. In other words, trying to keep it out of the hands of Congress where they're going to load up a bill with all the bad stuff they can do, and keeping it at the ATF, even though I know it irritated a lot of NRA members. Is there a possibility that they were actually being pretty clever there?
Well, I think you're on to something. And if many of your listeners will recall back to the early 1990s, there was a device, it was called a Hellfire switch, and it was involved in the California 101 shooting with the Tech 9. And ATF subsequently relabeled that as a destructive device because it turned the gun into a fully automatic firing mode, even though technically the gun didn't fire that way, but with that addition it did. I mean, these are kind of, I think, I got to admit to you, Tom, until last Monday, I had never heard of a bump fire stock. I guess I must be a little out of it. I hope I'll be running into you soon at the wholesaler show in San Antonio in a couple of weeks. I guess you let things drop for a couple of years and you lose touch with some of the latest equipment going on.
Most people had never heard of it. I mean, I've shot them, so I'm familiar with them. But I guess my point is I think I would encourage people before they just start burning their NRA cards to think, wait a minute, they may be playing a game of chess here and saying if we can get this in the hands of the regulators as opposed to Congress, because, I mean, Nancy Pelosi she just came out and said, they said that if we go after bump stocks, that's a slippery slope. She says, I sure hope so, because I want to use that as a way to get to a lot of our other gun control things we want to do.
No one likes to be injured, but sometimes the best approach to an injury is to cauterize the problem as quickly and as neatly as possible and not let it continue to bleed and go on and on. That's often not helpful, even if in a perfect world it's certainly defensible. I think I could make a very good argument, and I'm sure you could as well, that had the shooter not had that stock, he might have been a more deadly shooter. When you're using something that essentially ends up spray firing like that in a fully automatic type mode, you're not taking aim at your target.
Well, in this case, I'm going to have to tell. I'm going to disagree because all he had to do was hit a football field. He wasn't trying to be accurate. Richard, I'm up against a hard break here, man. I've got to run. Tell people how they can follow what you've been up to.
Well, probably the best way you can follow us these days is on our Facebook account, Independent Firearm Owners on Facebook, and we certainly have an awful lot of exciting things going on that page. About to have a T-shirt out. Sometimes I get involved in the shrimp business these days, and we have a T-shirt coming
Richard,
out with
I hate to do it, man, but if I don't go right now, they're going to cut me off. I've got to run. Listen, we'll be right back.
There's only one place where you can buy that firearm you've always wanted and turn it into your very own. That place is Brownells.com. Now offering a huge selection of firearms from all your favorite brands. Brownells is the spot to buy online. When you're choosing your gun, be sure to look over the enormous selection of parts, accessories, ammo, and more to make that firearm your masterpiece. Brownells.com. Serious about firearms.
For 36 years, the U.S. Sportsmen's Alliance has been fighting to protect hunting, fishing, and trapping for sportsmen from coast to coast. Today, we are under constant attack from extremist animal rights groups who want to end your ability to hunt in the U.S. Join us to protect our sporting heritage and our way of life outdoors. To join or for more information on how you can help, go to ussportsman.org. That's ussportsman.org.
Smith & Wesson Performance Center firearms combine old-world hand craftsmanship with modern technology. Carry comfortably and confidently with Performance Center pistols and revolvers. Or take aim with their fine-tuned modern sporting rifles. For unique designs and special features, experienced shooters look to the Performance Center for all their firearms needs. Performance Center by Smith & Wesson. Performance when it matters most. For more, go to smith-wesson.com/PC.
When someone leaves you their gun collection, you may want a few, but what do you do with the rest? How do you sell them? Who do you call? Well, I call Johnny Dury at Dury's Guns. Whether you're selling one gun or 500, they'll tell you what it's worth and write you a check. Simple, quick, easy, fair. I trust Dury's Guns. Give them a call. DurysGuns.com.
Laser sights enhance shooting fundamentals, sight alignment, and trigger control. Training with laser sights increases muzzle awareness, improves and corrects sight alignment and sight picture, and aids in acquiring and maintaining sight picture in low light conditions. Call 800-442-2406 or visit crimsontrace.com for a free copy of our laser training video, The Laser's Edge, and learn why Crimson Trace is making laser sights standard equipment.
All right, back with you here. Let's see, line 3. James is with us out of Palestine, Texas. Hey, James.
Hello, Tom. I have read that Nevada is a big state for gun tourism. People fly there from all over the world to fire firearms. There's a lot of high rollers, millionaires, billionaires. And this shooter, he was a multimillionaire and a high roller, and he's in Las Vegas where you got enough money you can get anything, like a legal machine gun or even an illegal machine gun.
You can shoot them there. You can't buy them there. You can't like go to Vegas and buy a machine gun without going through the process of federal approval and licensing, registration, and a year wait on that. So he could have gone there to shoot them, but in terms of getting a full auto gun, you still can't just go buy one and then pick it up that day.
Well, yeah, I guess, he had enough money and a clean record. He passed the Brady background checks numerous times. And
exactly.
And also, let's face it, if you got the money and pass the word around, says, I want a machine gun, there's bound to be somebody who can find something full auto for you to buy.
I'm sure that's true. And, and I think you make an excellent point. And I want to make sure that people are getting this. And thank you for the call, James. People say, well, we have to do something. And I get it. It's frustrating. It's horrible. It's whether it's terrorism or if it's nutcase and I get it when the sheriff says he has a hard time believing this guy acted alone or didn't. No, he said didn't have help. That's what he said. I don't want to stir up the conspiracy guys, but the point I make to people is, look, the FBI said this guy could have guns over and over and over again. Whenever he bought a gun, the FBI said, yeah, he's good. No issues here. So what do you do with that? How, I guess I keep asking people, okay, how do you want to restrict him and not restrict everybody else? Well, we don't want to take away people's rights. Well, except that, we'll take away some of them because, it's okay to inconvenience. I love it. They say, we're going to take away your rights and that's just going to be an inconvenience to you. They just wave their hand and dismiss the very idea of constitutional rights. And they say, well, won't you just put up with being inconvenienced a little bit? Like with a waiting period, or maybe a 1 gun a month deal, or maybe a limit of 10 guns that you can have altogether, or maybe only 50 rounds that you can have at a time. It's just an inconvenience. You just have to go back to the store more often. Let's start inconveniencing you on the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment and some others. Oh, well, that's different. I always love it. That's different. Yeah, really. That's because it doesn't affect you for you to restrict my rights. That's how it's different. Let's see, what are the things I have been seeing this week? Only a Navy SEAL could effectively shoot an AR-15. You're okay. AR-15s are never used for hunting. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Take that back. It was semi-autos. Semi-autos are never used for hunting. Where to start? Well, let's start with President Teddy Roosevelt. Yeah, way back. We're talking 100 years ago. Used a semi-automatic rifle for hunting. Some 40, nope, more than that, 50 plus years ago, I used a semi-automatic .308 to kill my first deer when I was 11 years old. Every day, people are using semi-automatic firearms to hunt with. It's just the dumb stuff you're seeing out there based on utter ignorance. And you know what it is? A lot of it is people, they think that semi-automatic means full auto. They don't know the difference. And so they're quick to say we should ban all semi-automatic firearms, thinking that they're talking about banning full auto. And then how many times have you heard this week, well, of course, full auto firearms are illegal, but this makes it shoot like a full auto. Well, no, actually, they're not illegal either. You can own a full auto, and you just have to go through some steps. But what was interesting was how many gun bills popped up. Clearly, they didn't write these. These were already sitting in the door ready to go. S. 1945, Keep Americans Safe Act, a bill to regulate large-capacity ammunition feeding devices by Bob Menendez from New Jersey. S. 1923, a bill to prohibit firearms dealers from selling a firearm prior to the completion of a background check from Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut. S. 1939, a bill to repeal the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act from Richard Blumenthal. That's the silver bullet for them right there. If they can repeal the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, they get rid of all gun making in the country. All gun makers would close. Period. The moment a company becomes liable for the misuse of a functional product. Somebody takes a product and then misuses it. The product does not malfunction. It works the way it's designed, but I'm going to hold you responsible for somebody else misusing it. Then they will close their doors. And they know that. And Richard Blumenthal knows that. And the gun ban industry knows that. And that's why they are fighting so hard to repeal the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, which all it says is you cannot hold a gun maker responsible for the misdeeds of a third party when the gun maker didn't do anything wrong or the gun store didn't do anything wrong. All of these measures were popped out. They just sit there and wait. And, I mean, it's horrible to say. They actually do not even wait until the bleeding has stopped. They just don't. And another interesting twist, Washington, D.C. is going to become a shall issue entity on concealed carry. The Wren decision, this is a Second Amendment Foundation case, Wren versus District of Columbia. Washington, D.C. was requiring people to show good reason to obtain a concealed weapons permit, concealed carry permit. The court said, no, you can't do that. That's actually a right. And the question was whether D.C. was going to appeal that to the U.S. Supreme Court. They have decided not to for one particular reason. It's because if they do, the Supreme Court will probably, and this is a Neil Gorsuch deal, the Supreme Court would probably say, no, you cannot require someone to show good cause before they can get a carry permit. And that would have thrown out the laws in a number of states like California, which require you to show good cause for some things. So D.C. becomes shall issue. Fascinating. We'll see what happens there. Tell you what, coming up, we're going to have Congressman Steve Scalise right here. Of course, he was shot in an assassination attempt in Washington, D.C., and the media wants him to come out and say, well, we got to do something with guns. I'm telling you what, he's better than that. You want to hear this, he is impressive.